Hello and welcome to a Firstpost PoV. We're focusing on South Asia today, where the tensions have been renewed between Pakistan and Afghanistan. Overnight, the Pakistani military carried out multiple airstrikes on Afghanistan, and most of the attacks were concentrated on the Khost province, which is in the southeastern part of the country. Now, this comes after a brief pause in the fighting between the two sides. If you remember, last month as well, there were airstrikes and gunfire exchange at the border between these two sides. But there are multiple rounds of peace talks, which were hosted by Doha and Turkey, in the end managed to bring some sort of peace at the frontier. Now, those tensions have been renewed once again. The question is why, and where do things go from here? We put these questions to my guest, Professor Michael Semple, who's a visiting scholar at the Queen's University in Belfast. Thank you so much, Professor, for speaking to us on Firstpost.
Delighted to join you on this difficult issue.
Let's talk about why the Pakistani military may have chosen to hit right now. What was the trigger for this latest round of airstrikes?
Well, the immediate trigger may well have been a suicide bombing on the Frontier Corps headquarters in Peshawar, which the Pakistani side has said was carried out by Afghan nationals fighting with the TTP, the Pakistani Taliban. But quite apart from that incident, the Pakistanis say that there is a continuing pattern of violence, a stepped up insurgency in the country, which they blame on militants based in Afghanistan and supported by the Taliban regime.
Right. Now, these, like I mentioned, are the latest round of attacks. We've seen attacks in Kabul, we've seen attacks in the Paktika province, the Jalalabad, and now in Khost. Are we to assume that the Pakistanis are expanding the scope of their operation and striking new targets in Afghanistan every time they launch such operations?
Well, in a sense, the moving to striking targets in Khost and two other border provinces, are a return to a grim business as usual. Striking in the areas which are the launching points for militants crossing over into Pakistan. What was striking about the fighting last month was that the Pakistanis hit targets in the Afghan capital. That really, I think, took the Taliban aback. They felt that was unprecedented. The Taliban felt that they were obliged to respond to it, and they did by firing all along the border. They've said that they will retaliate this time also. It remains to be seen. They may think that they can sort of cope with limited strikes along the border, and it may be that they just give a limited retaliation.
Now, the interesting thing about this attack is that Pakistani military or the government has not really officially released a statement claiming that they carried out this attack in response to what the suicide bombing that we mentioned in Peshawar. Any reason you think why the Pakistanis are silent instead of sending a message loud and clear to Kabul saying, this is us, we have hit you for what happened last week?
Well, I think that the point about using your Air Force to carry out this kind of strike is that whether you put out a statement or not, the message is delivered loud and clear. So they've served notice on the Taliban regime that continued support for the TTP and continued damage done by the TTP or their Afghan backers inside Pakistan, will meet a fearful response. The statement is sort of irrelevant. It saves them the bother of spelling it out. The two sides are watching each other intently. They know what the either side is doing. At the moment, they're locked into this tit-for-tat strike cycle. Neither side seems set to back down. They sort of know what they're doing. It's when they escalate that it becomes slightly more puzzling. This is business as usual. Unfortunately, as long as this insurgency has been going on, Pakistan has periodically been launching strikes across the border, and the Taliban feel themselves, they feel vulnerable to them, but they also reckon we can take this.
Which also makes me question the effectiveness of these strikes, because if this is the new normal, Pakistan does give a military response to terror attacks carried out by the TTP, which they accuse the Kabul regime of shielding. Why is it that the Taliban have not decided that to accept the claims that are being made by the Pakistanis and continue shielding these groups? If the attacks are not working, what more can the Pakistani military do now?
Well, that's absolutely the crux of the issue. I think that the Taliban leadership is convinced that it is now locked into an armed conflict with Pakistan. they are strategically committed to maintaining their support for the TTP. Ultimately, although the Taliban leadership is not going to announce the objective, I think observers understand that the strategic intent is to overthrow the Pakistani state. Now, I mean, there's no sign yet that the Taliban, whether Afghan or Pakistani, can muster the force to achieve that. But that's the objective, and the Taliban are prepared to continue backing them. The Pakistanis are able. They're able, with a degree of impunity, to respond through these airstrikes. But these airstrikes will never stop an insurgency. Now, the Pakistanis could continue to take the pain, but the violence is increasing. It's now in Pakistan, the violence is at a higher level than any year since 2014, which was when, of course, they launched the last major military operation in the tribal areas, particularly in Waziristan, Zerbi-Azb. So, I mean, it is starting to hurt there, but I think both sides calculate that if the Pakistanis were to launch any kind of operation on the ground against the Taliban, it would be very risky. The Taliban, in a sense, are spoiling. They're spoiling for that kind of fight. They reckon that they can inflict even more damage on that. Ultimately, the question is: do the Pakistanis have the determination and the backing from other powers to launch an operation actually to try and remove the Taliban administration? At the moment, it seems that they don't have that backing, but clearly they will be contemplating that because, this kind of fighting otherwise could go on for years.
Right. I think it's safe to say we haven't seen the end of this. This fighting will continue as long as the insurgency and the terror attacks continue in Pakistan, as long as the Taliban continue to deny that they have nothing to do with what's happening. We'll be tracking what happens in the South Asian frontier very closely. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us and explaining some of the aspects of this conflict.
Delighted. Thank you.
They promised glory. They delivered fear. They shaped nations. They scarred generations. From brutal purges to propaganda machines, from stolen power to violent falls from the throne. Welcome to The Dictator, a series that strips away the myth and then exposes the men behind the tyranny. History remembers their power. Firstpost reveals their truth.